Well, there was certainly nothing boring about that, eh, Gary? It might be worth turning that telly back on after all. Grandstand finish, blockbusting goal to save the day just when all seemed lost. Why, it was almost like stepping back in time to the days when football was interesting.
Former Manchester United defender turned font of all football wisdom Neville had told the world how treble-winning City's dominance of the game was making it a turn-off. How a yawning gap between them and the rest had made football simply, well, yawning as far as he is concerned.
And if Gary thinks it, of course it must be true. Although sometimes, whisper it quietly, perhaps he's wrong after all. Like last night, for example, when he sure as hell was. Okay, maybe not blood and thunder, chances galore.
But a proper contest, for so long looking like a triumph for the underdog, then a late equaliser, and edge of the seat throughout. Read more in FOOTBALLMAN. City 1 Chelsea 1 champions held by impressive Blues as Sterling caps return with goal power up. Get £40 in free football bet builder bets when you stake £10 with Paddy Power. The only thing predictable, in fact, was the unpredictability, as Chelsea fought like dogs to protect a lead given to them by Raheem Sterling, and City fought like dogs to peg it back.
Heavens! Even when they managed it, the unlikely face of their rescuer was actually a pretty likely one after all. For while Rodri, whose 82nd minute thunderbolt made it on as even, might not score many, the ones he does certainly come on the biggest of occasions.
The winning strike in the Champions League last season, for example. Most read in football. Burnley 0 Arsenal 5 Havertz completes route after game delayed due to Ramsey horror injury. Ramsey scare. Burnley vs Arsenal delayed after horror injury as star given oxygen on field. Seeing red. Strangest red card ever handed to West Brom boss in utterly bizarre moment. Eagle Eye. Roy Hodgson agrees to step aside for Glasner with McCarthy to take Everton clash. How to get free bets on football or the equaliser in the come from behind title clincher against Aston Villa the year before. So just chalk this one, a pile driver into the corner via Trevor Chalobah's knee when Kyle Walker's shot was blocked, up as merely one more.
Jose Mourinho opens up on Cristiano Ronaldo, Man United, Chelsea and job offers in interview with Rio Ferdinand and, to be fair, at least it ensured an outcome that City's possession merited, even if they hardly spent the evening taking potshots at keeper Đorđe Petrović. Indeed, for all they only saw half as much of the ball, Chelsea had an equal share of chances, from the early cross Conor Gallagher put behind Nicholas Jackson as he waited for a tap-in.
On the touchline Mauricio Pochettino whipped round in fury, with good cause. A decent cross and it was a tap-in for the Senegalese striker, barely 6 yards out. Then again, when you saw the gimme of a chance he missed midway through the first half, perhaps not.
It started with a great ball down the line from City old boy Cole Palmer to the rampaging Malo Gusto, who picked out the unmarked Jackson in the middle. With City stretched, he had all the time to steady himself for a first-time shot.
Instead he got his legs in a tangle, and by the time he did pull the trigger, Ederson smothered. It was the finish of a striker who looked bereft of confidence, bereft of belief in his own ability.
It was, in short, a shocker, and surely one that would cost them. After all, when it comes to the Etihad, the champions usually simply blow sides away. Overpower them, overrun them, outplay them. Credit, then, to Chelsea for sticking in there, and then for sticking the ball in the net when they did create another opening and snatch the lead on 42 minutes.
It was the classic sucker punch, too, catching City with a lightning counter-raid via Gusto and Jackson, who certainly proved a better provider than he was finisher. For when he crossed magnificently and pinpointedly to Sterling, he cut back inside Walker and clipped a finish into the far corner.
Perfection for Chelsea, purgatory for City. Fair reward, though, for their efforts. And especially those of Enzo Fernandez, increasingly looking the £100 million midfielder he is.
A hell of a lot more than colleague Moses Caicedo, at least, a man who cost a similar amount yet at times played like a Sunday league hacker with a hangover. Caicedo was lucky to escape a yellow for jabbing a foot into Jeremy Doku, collected one for skiving down Kevin De Bruyne and walked an ever-stretched tightrope towards a red.
City were walking one with their wasted opportunities too. And, believe it or not, the man guilty for the biggest clangers was Erling Haaland. The man who had rattled in 75 goals in his previous 72 games in a sky blue shirt.
The finest finisher in Europe, maybe even the world. But last night one who came up with two howlers to haunt him for years. The first came after little more than 10 minutes, when he got up well enough to meet Julian Alvarez, cross, but couldn't keep his header down.
But the worst came 65 minutes later when Jeremy Doku clipped a ball from the left. Haaland came flying in, and bulleted a header wide from 10 yards. Read more SUN stories. Clapback Jamie Lang breaks silence on Backlash as he replaces Jordan North on Radio 1. GREEN goddess Kerry Katona shows off 4-stone weight loss as she strips down to bikini in Spain. That was when you sensed perhaps it wasn't going to be their night after all.
They weren't going to peg back Liverpool's 5-point lead after all, only no one told Rodri. Looks like we're in for a proper title scrap all the way to the line. You never know, it might even tempt Mr. Neville to get back in front of the box.